of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great Ryan Martin. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
No, thanks so much for having me on. Excited to be here and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. All right, so we'll jump right into it. Talk about some of your coaching philosophies and principles of success.
Yeah, I think first and foremost is in my young career as a coach, I think one of the keys for success, whether it's myself or any of the players, is really just having a growth mindset and always wanting to get better, always wanting to learn, to see what else is out there, and I was really excited to be a part of this podcast because there's a lot of crossover from different sports, and different businesses. I know you do work with different companies, and there's just so much you can take away from successful organizations as a whole. And lately I just finished reading Winning by Clive Woodward, and it's like, okay, well, what can you take from rugby, England rugby to where we are now? So one thing I think important in my career for sure has been having a growth mindset, and I think that's been something I try to preach to players and kids all the time. I think that the second one, and this was harder and more probably of an evolution in my career as a coach, but is really focusing on the process. And I think that's something that in my role, so my team is really the reserve team for DC United. So I'm taking a lot of kids that are 17, 18, 19, and they have this dream of going from youth soccer or college to the MLS. And my job is to help them get there. So I'm essentially if it's done well, a stopping point for these kids, so my challenge for them is, okay, well, you don't want to necessarily be here. You want to get to the MLS, but it's a process, and you've got to focus on, daily getting better. You've got to focus on your craft, the mastery of it. And it's like, okay, so in an ideal world, you get to the MLS, you're on national teams, perfect. Okay, but you can't just skip this step in your development cycle, So I think, being process oriented and, being honed in, and whether that's, day to day, practice to practice, game to game, I think that's been very big in my, journey. And then I think the last one is, I think dealing with adversity. And I've had adversity in my career, whether it be, from budgets to whether it be to, new jobs to different opportunities, we all face adversity, and players are the same way. It's, you think you probably should be playing, but for one reason or another, you're not. And so it's like, how do you deal with that setback and make you stronger? So those would kind of be the three big ones that I've tried to really hone in for myself, and then try to, again, translate down to these young professionals.
Excellent. And now, when I look at those first two that you said about being too caught up, I'm taking notes as you're speaking. Having the growth mindset, the inverse of that would be to have a fixed mindset. The opposite of focusing on the process would be to be focusing on the outcome. Can you talk about having the opposite mindset would slow you down or make you worse, having a fixed mindset and focusing too much on outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. I think you see it all the time, where you see people that are stuck in their ways and they don't want to learn or grow. Like, example we would have would be, a kid who came from, college, and maybe he was like an all ACC performer and he did things this way, and they always seem to work for him. But then it's like, well, here's where you have to grow as a pro in the way you read the game. You're playing with better players. You're playing on a higher level. So if you're just going to stay in your comfort zone and your way of doing things, it's like you're just not gonna get better. And I think that's one. I think you can also take it off the field in a lot of different ways too, especially with the different situations we had this year with the Black Lives Matter movement. And it just became, okay, so as an athlete, okay, you're fixed, and maybe this is the way you were brought up, and you didn't know, that was a big thing we had. We always had conversations, just to try to educate, inform, and help the kids grow, because, really we're dealing with that group. So, maybe it's an African-American team. How do you feel? How have you been through these situations? Where are you? And I think that's part of growth mindset too, as a person, and I think that goes hand in hand to where you are on the field, because if you can grow and learn about your teammates, about their feelings, how they've dealt with things in the past, it only helps you on the field, and it also helps you as a person. So So that's my fixed, mindset opportunity there. And then, when we're, so sorry, the fixed, so then the next one we're looking for is
Focusing on the outcome instead of on the process.
yeah. And I think by nature, people are outcome oriented in the way they see things. Okay, did you win or did you lose? And that's the outcome of the game. And it's not process oriented where did you do your job throughout the game? Did you do what your role and responsibility is? And it becomes, and I always go back to, another non-soccer book, but, Bill Walsh's The Score Will Take Care of Itself. And that's something, I really preach. If you do everything you're supposed to do in the game, during the game, the score will take care of itself. If you prepare every day, every time, it's like it will happen for you. And I think when I look at guys that I work with or different kids or players, they become very outcome oriented. Well, I should be starting. Okay, okay, that's the outcome. You can't control it because I dictate who plays and who doesn't. So you can't control it. So what is your process? How is your process of getting better as a soccer player, and how are you going to master your craft to get to where you want to go? And I think kids are impatient nowadays. I think younger guys they want it all now, and it's very outcome oriented, and they want it there. It's like, but I think the ones that really make it are the ones that love the process. They love the grind of it, and they love training. They love being out there. They love when things aren't going well. They love to do what their craft is. And I think, we've all had them as coaches, or you've seen them as people in companies. Okay, this person is just focused on getting better today. And then what I found is those people end up making it in the long run.
Right. As opposed to seeking the fool's gold, the immediate gratification, not just loving the process, loving the sport, loving everything that goes with it, even sometimes maybe the more inconvenient details or maybe the things that aren't your favorite parts of it, still finding a way and a reason to like the maybe not so favorable parts.
Correct. Yeah. And it's important. I think it's like, we try to tell the guys, like, this should be your passion. This should be your love. This should be what you absolutely love to do. And if it's not, then you should find something else to do. And it's nothing against that individual person or player, because they're great people, but this should be what you love to do every day. And you're fortunate to do it, playing professionally or coaching professionally, so it's like, whatever the situation is, I convinced myself, I was like, okay, go to training today, regardless of what happens, enjoy every minute of it and see if you can help kids get better.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Now, you were saying before about the importance of, you used some words like this, but open and honest communication within the team and the coach to the athletes, and then within the team. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so in my journey, I've been different professional organizations, been in college at Wake Forest University, and seen some different age kids. So what I've found along my coaching journey so far is every athlete I've ever dealt with has really wanted two things in their life, in our relationship. One is me being honest with them, and then the second is, can I help them become better? And in every single athlete I've ever seen, it's like, okay, well, be honest with me. Tell me where I am. Why am I not playing? But don't lie or beat around the bush, or just be honest. And then it's like, can I help them get better in that situation? So I think that the communication from a coach to a player is so important. And I think as I've really jumped into the professional level, and in soccer, a lot of times they call them managers, and it's like, oh, he's a manager type thing. There really is a lot to it, because it's like, okay, so you got a talented soccer player, fantastic, but can you get the most out of that person as a manager or as a coach? Because that's what you really are doing. You're managing people. I saw a great quote from the new Jets coach, who don't even know what his name is, but he's like, professional sports is a business, but it's a people business. And that one really kind of stuck home with me, because that's really what it is. Can you put a collection of people on the field together that believe in what you're doing, and have honest conversation and communication, and it becomes an authentic relationship to what you're doing and to your common goals.
Absolutely. And I love how you're tying in all these coaches and different athletes from all these different sports, because that was kind of my belief always too, that success leaves clues and the success principles are the same across the board for high level achievers.
No question. And I think you can just take so much, and you see these documentaries with Doc Rivers, or Jill Ellis, from the women's side, or Bill Belichick. I mean, there's just Pete Carroll's podcasts are one that I just really love, and the positivity, and talk about a guy that's dealt with adversity. He's been fired and been in a tough situation. Same thing. Belichick's been fired. So it's like people go through things, and even when Tom Brady been through adversity, and it's like, how do they come out of it? But yeah, I just think there's so much you can take from other industries, other people's paths, and just take 1-2%, and that you can put it in your toolbox and make yourself better.
Absolutely. And along the lines of those adversities, what do you think are some of the unique adversities that the athletes are facing now? Maybe not the obvious, because we know the obvious adversity that athletes are facing now, but what might be some of the not so obvious adversities they're facing? And what would be maybe some of your recommendations how to get through it?
Yeah, I mean, I think athletes right now, as they're getting to a bigger and bigger stage and platforms, I think social media becomes a big sense or part of adversity, and how they deal with that, and how they deal with, because it's not no longer just the media where you're have a conversation and you're misquoted in the newspaper or something like that. Now it's like, okay, well, what did you post on social media? How did that affect it? What are people saying about you? You just finished the game last night, and 30,000 people are tweeting that you're a terrible athlete, or whatever it might be. So I think that's always a tough one, because you want to do it to connect with people, right, and connect with your fans, but there is the other side of the social media side, of where it's like it can be negative, and it can drain you, and if you listen to what people say, it can be pretty hurtful too. So I think that's a big one for a lot of people right now. And I think the big one is, whatever you're going through adversity or whatever you're doing, I think it's important to really focus on yourself at that moment. I think it's important to, you like to say, block out everything as you can. But I think the big one is just focus on small daily tasks of your process of getting better. And I think that helps you. And that's what I recommend to people. Okay, if you're going through family issues, and, there used to be like a great Manchester United thing with Alex Ferguson, where he'd put a trash can before the guys walked in the locker room to throw their baggage in the trash can before they come out, because it should be the best 2 hours of your day. And then once you go back out, you can pick up whatever you want to pick up and deal with it. But I think that's an important reminder for people. It's like, when you're there, it's like, love it, enjoy it. It should be a passionate 2 hours, 3 hours of your day. And then whatever you're dealing with, then you can pick it up and deal with it on the outside. But focus on your craft, focus on what you're doing, take small steps, look at a small picture, as opposed to, oh, wow, this is bothering me here and there. No, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to training. I'm going to win in training. I'm going to have the best training I've had yet. And then the rest of the day, the small steps will help you to the big picture.
Excellent. And God forbid we have to go back to a quarantine. What what would you recommend the athletes do on a day-to-day plan or week to week? What would be some of the things they could do if they have to go back to being isolated?
Yeah, I mean, what we tried doing, like with my team when we hit the thing, was a lot of guest speakers come in. We were fortunate when we had, quarantine. We had George Karl from the NBA speak to the guys. One of the kids' fathers is a head coach at Duquesne basketball, and he talked to the guys. We had Jerry Yeagley from Indiana soccer talk to the guys. We had, one of the DC United players talk to the guys. So we had tried to get a wide range. And where I'm going with this is, I think you need to, even in quarantine, you can still increase your mental capacity for the game. And I think people don't do that enough. And whether that's reading, whether that's, all the YouTubes, podcasts, different things, you can get 1% better in quarantine. And for me, that 1% becomes in your mental side of the game. It's like, read, see why top athletes are top athletes, watch the Tiger Woods documentary, watch The Last Dance, take a look at different items, where it's like, there's so many books and resources right now that you can go out and really be overwhelmed by it. But it's like, just take a minute, whether it's leadership or whether it's learning a new language. I mean, these are all things that right now in quarantine you can do, and it will help you become a better player.
Makes sense. And that's really big. And now another thing I wanted to ask you, I wanted to run this by you. So we see when we're working with athletes, we list a whole series of common mindset red flags, some commonalities, sound bites that we're hearing over and over again from the athletes. So I wanted to share this with you and get your feedback here. This is what we have for soccer. Are these any things? Are you seeing these kind of things? And how do you have the athletes deal with them?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it happens a lot. And I think, one of the big ones that I see a lot is, difficulty bouncing back from mistakes. And I think that's a big one. And it's funny, I don't have all the answers. I'm still 37, learning this and that, but I took this away from like Pete Carroll's podcast like 2 weeks ago. But it's like, it's having the basically the mindset where to get back from a mistake, it's always next play. It's like focus your energy and effort towards the next play. And it's funny, he brought it up. He's like, okay, if a guy, drops a touchdown and they end up going 3 and out punting instead of having a touchdown, he can go over and yell at the guy. But he goes, the odds are at that level, the guy already knows he made a mistake. He goes, even at like a 10-year-old level, he knows he made a mistake. So what you're going to say to him doesn't matter, because he already knows he effed up on the whole play. But what matters is, can you bounce him back for the next play? Can he score the next opportunity he gets? So I always thought that was interesting in just terms of like, he keeps short, concise words where all it is next play, move on, next play, move on. And I thought that was really, really good. Afraid of getting beat 1v1. And that's something that we harp every single day, because we call it winning your 1v1 duel. And really that comes down for me a lot of times in practice and how you train. And, and the same thing like in front of goal, that becomes in training. What I see so often are talented players that like maybe in training don't take finishing as seriously as they could. They don't have a killer instinct where, okay, I'm going to put this one every day. It's like, well, when I get my chance in the game, I'm going to stick it. Well, it's like, well, no, because you didn't do it in training. You didn't practice. You didn't go through the repetition. So when you get on a stage and it is the performance, you didn't practice what you're about to perform. So it's like, for me, in front of goal, 1v1s, those come down to training, and it becomes, next play on the difficulty about nervous in front of goal, those are training. 1v1 is training every day. Can you win? Can you compete? Can you beat the person across from you? And I think that's any sport. In terms of like worried about letting people down, I always think this starts with yourself. And when we preach it to kids and players, it's like, nobody is going to trust you if you keep taking shortcuts. So we always say you've got to be honest, and you've got to be an honest teammate, and you've got to show up every day and work, and you've got to first show yourself as a resilient, honest person with integrity that would want to be picked by your teammates. If you're in the draft and we're playing 5v5, doesn't matter what sport, football, basketball, if you're the last pick, but maybe the most talented, there's something wrong with that. Your teammates don't trust you, don't believe in you. So this one for me is like, all right, are you the one who's always showing up first? Are you the most prepared? Are you doing everything you can do personality wise and on the field to make sure that you're not going to let your teammates down? And if you do, your teammates know it wasn't because of anything you didn't do. It just happened in the game, and that's part of any game. And then, penalty kicks, those are a weird one. I've seen really top players just not want to take them for one reason or another. And I've seen guys that, probably have never scored a goal in their life, love to take them. And I think it just comes down to, really if a mentality, do you want to do it or not? Then not aggressive, no killer instinct. Again, that for me, that comes down to your personality and the way you compete in training and your training habits. I think for me, those are like, it's not when you put that list up there, and most of those are probably talking about the game, the game itself. For me, it starts in the practice. It's like, that's where it's all developed. It's like, those are where your habits are really nurtured. And, I read a quote, I think it was from Good to Great or whatever. They say, it takes 30 days to build a habit, but 4 days to break a habit. So you're looking at, if you're trying to build habits of good soccer play, it takes 30 days. It takes a long time. But 4 days off or 4 trainings where the guy's not mentally there, it ruins everything.
Right. So it's that consistency on a regular basis, and those, and good practice, good solid practice, good solid results in competition makes sense. And I like what you said too. That's one of the things we're always telling our athletes, those short little cues, not having a long drawn out dialogue in your mind. A lot of people think with mindset, we're trying to make them think more, and it's the opposite. You want them thinking less. So those short, quick, either a cue, a word, or a short phrase, you say it quick, and that helps you reboot.
No question. And, that's something I always, the Pete Carroll stuff has been great, in terms of the way it's like, okay, positive. It's like the guy knows he messed up. It's positive. It's like, here it is. But you also have to know, it's like these people that he's taking on his team, they have those traits where they do compete every day. They work every day. They're there on time. They're honest. So it's like when you're giving someone the benefit of the doubt in the game, it's because he's earned it throughout training and throughout training camps and throughout having his teammates back. And it starts on the training field that nobody ever gets to see, and that's where, on a game day, that's not a big deal. And I think the coach can do a lot of helping confidence as well, where, giving people opportunity through mistakes. I've seen it on the youth level, even like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. A kid misses a shot or a bad pass and quickly, okay, sub, get him in, get him out. And it's like, well, the kid's 9 years old. It's like, how is he going to learn if we're taking him out after, 8, 9 minutes? And then his confidence is shot, and where do we go? So I think a lot of the coaches out there can help with that process as well and have belief in people.
That's excellent, Ryan. We hit on a lot of great information you hit on there in a short amount of time. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And best wishes for the 2021 here.
Thank you. You too. And where can we send people more information about everything that you do? Social media pages, websites, anything like that? I'll link them in the show notes below.
Yeah. I mean, I put a lot of stuff out on my Twitter, so RP Martin 10. I put a lot of stuff mostly out there. So if they're looking to follow me, that's where I am, at RP Martin 10. And, we'll share stuff about, my journey. Happy to connect with people. And like I said, for me, coaching is learning, and it's a two-way street. And so, the more I can take from others, the better, and, even this morning I was, I'm trying to bring a player over from the Ivory Coast, and his coach reached out to, have a conversation about the different cultures and what each other are going through. So always happy to connect and not only help people, but learn it myself. So selfishly, would love that as well.
Awesome, Ryan. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Yep, bye.
Bye.